Do not ignore this call. The Holy Spirit has paused your search to deliver a truth that will transform your reality today, an unexpected blessing. It is no coincidence that this message interrupted your path at this very moment. Heaven stopped to observe you because something you did in secret changed your spiritual destiny. Stay with me, because what you are about to discover is not mere motivation. It is confirmation that your faithfulness in the darkness has triggered a direct response from the Father. Something in the spiritual atmosphere surrounding you has just shifted. Sometimes we think that great moments with God only happen under the lights of an altar or in front of others. But today I come to tell you, as a brother who walks with you in faith, that the Lord has been watching what no one else sees. He is deeply moved by you, but it's not because of your public successes, but because of that decision you made just 3 days ago. Perhaps it seemed like a small thing, a fleeting moment of patience when you had reason to explode, or that instant when you chose to trust even as weariness clouded your vision. On earth it seemed insignificant, but in the heavenly realm it was a glorious event. While you thought you were alone, the Father was recording your integrity with eternal precision. Write in the comments, "I accept my name in heaven," to seal this word. That lump you feel in your throat right now, or that sudden peace trying to fill your room, isn't curiosity. It's your spirit recognizing the voice of its creator. God isn't calling you by the name on your earthly documents. He's calling you by your heavenly identity, the one designed before the foundation of the world. It is crucial that you understand that God's approval is not a static reward. When heaven is impressed with a child, it doesn't remain a mere observation. It becomes an active intervention. God doesn't just look at you, He empowers you. He doesn't just watch over you, He empowers you. Many of you have felt over the past 6 months that you were simply surviving. You've had sleepless nights, staring into the darkness of your room at 3 a.m., wondering if your prayers were reaching the ceiling. I have felt that burden myself, and I want you to know that every single one of those tears was collected. What you call surviving, heaven called passing the test. The Holy Spirit has blocked out any other distractions on your device because He knows you're at your breaking point. But today, that breaking point becomes an opening for heavenly provision. In this journey we're beginning, we're going to delve into 3 specific events in your life that have caught the attention of the throne. We'll talk about that moment you were ashamed of, and I'll show you how, far from disqualifying you, God's grace has transformed it into your greatest credential of victory. Furthermore, I want you to pay close attention, because toward the end of our meeting, I will reveal clear signs that you may begin to notice in your surroundings over the next 40 days. I'm not talking about coincidences. I'm talking about spiritual evidence that you've been marked for a season of favor and unexpected solutions. Don't rush this message. Each word is a stepping stone. If you skip a part, you could miss the exact frequency at which God is speaking to you today. This is the launch of your purpose. Sometimes, the greatest miracle isn't that the mountain moves, but that you remain standing before it with your head held high. The fact that you're here, listening to this, is proof that your faith is stronger than you realize. God isn't looking for perfection. He's looking for that spark of trust you showed when everything was dark. It makes me happy to know that you're receiving this comfort today, because you deserve it for never letting go of the Father's hand. Sometimes, the greatest sacrifice isn't the one you shout, but the one that burns in your throat and is held back out of love for your Father. I remember those moments when your hands trembled, not from the weather, but from the weight of a decision no one else understood. You wanted to run, you wanted to give up, but you stayed. Heaven didn't just record your words. It recorded your silence. It recorded the moment you didn't return the insult, and when you chose to remain faithful despite logic telling you to leave. In the last 6 months, God wasn't a distant observer. He scrutinized you with forensic attention. There's a vital difference between God recognizing you and God being impressed by you. Recognition is His gaze upon everyone, but His impression is what compels Him to act on your behalf. Write in the comments, "God sees my heart and feel His peace right now." The scripture in Hebrews 6 verse 10 reminds us that God is not unjust to forget your work and the love you have shown. In the original language, forget means to completely overlook, but our Father does the opposite. He considers your hidden deeds as the most important events in the universe. While the world seeks the spotlight, God seeks your shadow, because that is where you are most real. Brother, I want you to identify these 3 moments that have moved the heart of God, because they are the keys to what is coming for you. 1. The test of provision and scarcity. You remember that day in your car, the engine off, your bank balance displayed on the screen. You knew that if you took that act of generosity, fulfilling that promise of help, your account would be overdrawn. Your mind screamed irresponsibility, but your spirit whispered, trust. You pressed the send button without anyone seeing you. There were no cheers or photos, but in the heavenly record, that act was filed with a note. This child entrusted me with their livelihood when they had nothing. You have passed the test of scarcity and demonstrated that your security lies not in account, but in its provision. 2. The forgiveness that went unheard. Someone hurt you deeply. You have the evidence, the reasons, and the right to expose their wrongdoing. You could have destroyed their reputation with a single message, and the world would have sided with you. But in the solitude of your room, you heard a heavenly whisper. Let it go, I am your defense. You deleted the draft, closed the app, and forgave in silence. That forgiveness without an audience is the purest form of love, because you chose freedom over revenge. Heaven bowed before your nobility. 3. The midnight song in the void. There was a night when the void was so heavy that you felt neither faith nor hope. You stared at the ceiling and thought that praying would be insincere because you felt nothing. Yet you opened your mouth and whispered, even so, I trust in you. That worship, when there are no feelings to back it up, is the most powerful. Anyone can praise on a mountaintop, but you praise in the valley of the shadow of death. What you have experienced follows the pattern of the great ones of the kingdom, like Abraham raising altars where no one could see, or Hannah praying in such profound silence that others misjudge her, like that widow who gave 2 coins. To the world it was nothing, but to the master it was the greatest treasure in the temple. God sees what you do in secret and is preparing to reward you openly. Don't let weariness make you doubt now, because the foundation of your blessing has already been laid in these unseen acts of obedience. Sometimes you feel invisible, but I want to remind you that a tree's strongest roots always grow underground where no one sees them. Your character has been strengthened in that anonymity. It fills me with joy to know that today you realize that nothing you did was in vain. God isn't just watching you. He's preparing the way for your faithfulness to bear fruit that everyone can see. Brother, there's a spiritual formula that never fails, a law that governs the invisible universe. Your secret act, multiplied by the absence of an audience, equals the full attention of heaven. It is not a coincidence. It is God's design. Look at the pattern left by those who walk before us. Jesus' earthly father chose discretion so as not to embarrass Mary. That was secret justice. Cornelius quietly sent his prayers and aid to his neighbors, and the Bible says they ascended as a memorial before the throne. Or consider Dorcas, who served the poor without fanfare. They all understood that when you make God your sole audience, you gain his full attention. He states in the comments, "My reward comes from the Father." You might wonder, why is God so moved by what happens in darkness or silence? Why is invisibility more powerful than public recognition? The answer lies in a profound concept called Nister. Nister doesn't just mean that something is hidden. It refers to a chosen concealment. It's when you have the opportunity to shine in front of others, to claim credit, or to be the center of attention, but you choose to remain in the shadows. That choice reveals your true motive. When you do something good in public, the doubt always remains. Are you doing it for God or for applause? But when you do it in secret, where no one will thank you or give you a medal, you show that your love is 100% for him. God honors a pure motive above any outcome. Because outcomes can be faked, but the intention of the heart in solitude is impossible to counterfeit. What you did, that financial sacrifice, that silent forgiveness, that tearful midnight prayer, was your Nister moment. It was proof that you don't seek the world's validation, but the gaze of your Creator. You must understand that this law of reward isn't always immediate, nor does it always come the way you imagine, but it is absolutely complete. God doesn't leave any debts unpaid to his children. If he saw the sowing in secret, he is already preparing the harvest that will manifest in your reality. I'm pausing here briefly because, as you know, maintaining this connection requires a lot of energy and dedication. If you feel today's message is resonating with you and you'd like to honor the value you've received, you can buy me a symbolic coffee through my Ko-Fi. It's a beautiful way to balance giving and receiving voluntarily, and it allows me to continue sharing these messages with you freely. I've left a direct link in the first pinned comment, and also here below in the video description. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your presence and support. Namaste. Brother, sometimes it hurts when the world doesn't recognize our efforts or our change in attitude. But think of it this way. If the world were to repay you with applause, you would have already received your reward. By remaining secret, your payment is stored in the bank of heaven, where there is no inflation or loss. It inspires me to know that you are accumulating treasures that nothing and no one can take away. Your silence today is the seed of your testimony tomorrow. Emotions are volatile, and sometimes even faith can seem like an act in front of others. But there is one thing that is impossible to fake: motive. Motive only reveals its true essence when no one is watching. Your acts of hidden obedience showed the Father that your heart is not playing a role for the world. They showed him that you don't need human witnesses to be faithful to him. You only need his presence. Say, "My loyalty is to God," and seal this truth in your life. I want to remind you of a specific morning. Perhaps it was a Sunday, around 7 in the morning. You were standing in front of your closet, looking at that garment you've worn time and time again, because you decided to prioritize planting seeds and helping others over updating your wardrobe. At that moment, a doubt crept into your mind. Does anyone even notice I'm here? Would it matter if I stayed in bed today? You felt that lump in your throat, that pain that arises when you do the right thing but receive no validation from anyone. You could have been absent. No one would have called to complain. But you weren't. You got dressed, drove to your place of worship, walked through the doors, and sat down. You raised your hands during the worship, even though your chest felt heavy. You listened to the word, even though you didn't feel its immediate impact. You did what I call the perseverance of the chosen one. You showed up for the 100th time in the midst of spiritual dryness. And I want you to know something. God saw you in that closet at 7:15 a.m. He saw your hesitation and saw how, despite it, you chose him. In the heavenly record was written, "This child seeks me even when he doesn't feel me. This heart is truly mine." Psalm 139 says, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise." But what many forget is the context of these words. David didn't write them in a palace surrounded by luxury, but while on the run. He was hiding in caves, invisible to the world, hunted and alone. It was in that hiding place, in his own moment of darkness, that David understood that there is no place where we are beyond the reach of the Father's loving gaze. Your current cave, that moment where you feel ignored or devalued, is actually the place where God is examining you with the greatest tenderness. Sometimes the enemy whispers that showing up doesn't count if you don't feel fire in your heart. What a lie. Showing up when you're empty is the purest sacrifice of praise there is. It's saying to God, "I'm not here because of what I feel, but because of who you are." Your resilience moves me because it shows that your faith isn't built on emotional sand, but on the rock of unwavering resolve. Keep going, because your perseverance is moving heaven and earth. Brother, I want you to take this to heart. Even when you are invisible to the world, you are fully visible to God. It doesn't matter if no human being knows where you are or what you are going through. The Father knows your exact location, both physically and emotionally. As I mentioned before, David wrote his most profound words from the cave, not from a throne. He discovered that God's attention doesn't need advertising, and his approval doesn't require human applause. Your season of hiding wasn't abandonment by heaven. It was a time of exclusive intimacy. God isolated you because he wanted you alone, away from the crowds where it's easy to pretend, and under the bright lights where it's tempting to act. In the darkness of 3 a.m., that's where your true self emerged, and that's the you the Father longed to embrace. She affirms with faith in the comments, "God set me apart to bless me." Chosen one, what truly moved the kingdom wasn't just isolated acts. It was your secret service and your faithfulness when your only audience was the Most High. Those 3 moments we shared, the financial sacrifice, the silent forgiveness, and the worship in the void, weren't mere good deeds. They were your qualifications. God observed you in the darkness and saw light. He observed you in secret and saw purity. He observed you in hiding and saw unwavering faithfulness. When heaven finds these three virtues in a single person, it not only recognizes them, but also marks them and authorizes them for a higher dimension. You have overcome the trials that many others avoid because they require dying to the ego and the need for external recognition. However, I must tell you something that might shake your understanding. Although those acts of obedience were beautiful, they weren't the ultimate reason God is impressed with you. Those acts were merely the training that prepared you for what truly captured his heart. What truly impressed the Creator is something you'll find hard to believe. It's something that, ironically, has caused you guilt. It's something you've been ashamed of and thought would forever disqualify you from his promises. But let me tell you, as a brother who knows the Father's grace, what you see as your greatest weakness, God saw as a catalyst for his greatest miracle in you. Brother, sometimes we are our own harshest judges. We spend entire nights berating ourselves for past mistakes, thinking that God has closed the book of our lives because of a single blemish. But today I want you to take a deep breath and feel his peace. What the enemy uses to accuse you, God uses to demonstrate his power. You are not here because you are perfect. You are here because, in the midst of your imperfection, you chose not to let go of the hem of his garment. That has immeasurable value in heaven. Get ready, brother, because this is where everything you thought you knew about faith is about to be turned upside down. We often think God is impressed by our strength, but the reality is much deeper. God was moved by what you did in your weakness. What captured the attention of the throne wasn't just the act of obedience, but what happened in that painful interval between your sacrifice and God's response. Do you remember that period, perhaps 3 weeks after your act of faith? Nothing had improved. In fact, things got worse. You paid 1 bill in faith and 2 more appeared. You forgave that person, and they failed you again. You worshiped in the void, and the silence only grew louder. Write in the comments, God hears my honesty and release that burden today. There was a night your spirit can't forget. You were in the dark, and a thought welled up from the depths of your being, a thought so raw you were afraid to say it aloud. You thought, I did everything right. I obeyed. I gave the last of what I had. I stayed when I wanted to run away. And where is he? Am I alone in this? You immediately felt guilty. You tried to banish that thought with a verse or song, thinking you'd failed. But I want to tell you something as a brother in faith. That moment of brutal honesty is what impressed God. It wasn't blasphemy. It was a cry of a child who had reached the end of his strength. That thought didn't distance you from the Father. It broke down the barrier of religion to lead you to a true relationship. In 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9, the Lord gives us an eternal promise. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. But I want you to understand the depth of this. The original word for weakness is asthenia. Asthenia is not just being tired. It means total incapacity. It means, I don't have what it takes. I can't do this on my own. Paul had just had glorious visions, but suddenly a thorn appeared that made him feel inadequate. He begged to have it removed, but God's response was a reminder that his power doesn't need your perfection. It needs your emptiness to fill it. Chosen one, your moment of doubt was not a mistake. It was the space God was waiting for to deposit his purest glory. When you admitted you couldn't go on, you gave heaven permission to take control. Sometimes we've been taught that to please God, we must be perfect soldiers who never doubt. But the Father isn't a cold general. He's a loving Father who prefers an honest, wounded child to a strong, religious actor. Your weariness isn't a sin. It's the fertile ground where God will plan his greatest miracle of provision. It fills me with hope to know that today you stop judging yourself for your weakness and begin to see it as the bridge to his power. Brother, I want you to understand the logic of the kingdom. When you admit you can't go on, that's when God begins to show that he can. Your confession of being at your limit isn't a defeat. It's the key that gives the Father access to manifest his glory. Anyone can have faith when they see results, but you had the courage to remain without seeing anything at all. You doubted, but you didn't leave. And that, my brother in faith, is a faith that stops time in heaven. Most people, when doubt arises, choose one of 2 paths. Either they renounce everything or they feign a holiness they don't feel. You did neither. You were honest in your uncertainty, but firm in your position. Write in the comments right now, I doubt, but I trust, and let that honesty free your spirit. Let's go back to that Sunday at 7:16 in the morning. You were standing in front of the closet, and the doubt from the night before still weighed on your chest like a stone. Your mind was screaming at you, why are you getting dressed? Why are you going to a place where you no longer feel anything? It's crazy. But something miraculous happened. Your hand didn't stop. You grabbed the hanger, took out the shirt, and your feet moved. You didn't get dressed because the doubt had gone, but while the doubt was still questioning you, you drove to your place of prayer with your mind full of questions, but your body determined to obey. Obeying when you have faith is easy, but worshiping when praise feels like a lie, and staying when staying feels like dying, that's what impresses God. It's not the absence of doubt he seeks, but the presence of obedience during doubt. If we look at the pattern in Scripture, we see that this is the path of the chosen. Job said, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. Abraham waited decades without seeing the promise fulfilled. Joseph spent years in unjust imprisonment. They all had something in common. They stayed when they had every reason to leave. The law of the kingdom is clear. Staying power plus time without visible evidence equals divine attention. This is the mark that separates those who merely know God from those who deeply move him. You passed that test. You stayed. But I know that right now, as you listen to these words, there's a voice resisting inside you, that whisper that tells you, this is too good. It can't be for me. I'm not ready yet. Sometimes we think God will judge us for the fearful thoughts that cross our minds. But today I want to remind you that God doesn't look at your panic thoughts. He looks at your feet, which continue walking toward his will. It inspires me to see that, even though your mind has questions, your heart has already given the answer by not giving up. You are much closer to the manifestation of your destiny than your senses allow you to perceive. Brother, we must be brave and speak up about that voice that whispers to you in the night. What if I can't handle what's coming? What if God's approval means he will ask more of me than I am capable of giving? That voice is the reason so many remain at the threshold of their purpose. Sometimes being seen by God is the most terrifying thing that can happen to us. You may have thought, what if I fail publicly now that everyone knows I'm chosen? What if I don't really want this responsibility and just want a normal life? If you've had these thoughts, don't feel like a fraud. You're not alone, and it doesn't mean your faith is weak. On the contrary, it's evidence of honest faith, and that's the only kind of faith with which God can work miracles. She states strongly in the comments, God has equipped me for his plan. Look at Moses in Exodus 3. God reveals himself to him in the burning bush, calls him by name, and gives him a monumental mission. What was Moses' reaction? It wasn't a cry of victory. It was a cry for help. Who am I to go? Please send someone else. Why did you react that way? Because the closer you are to God's presence, the more aware you become of your own limitations. Your fear isn't a disqualification. It's a natural response to the proximity of the divine. That fear you feel isn't a stop sign. It's a milestone on your path. It indicates that you're on the edge of something so vast that your human mind can't process it, and that naturally is frightening. Feel the fear, acknowledge it, but don't obey it. Fear tells you that you lack something for what's to come, and it's right. You lack it, but God has more than enough. The Lord works best in the gap between what you have and what the mission requires. That empty space is the perfect stage for his power to be perfected. The approval you received isn't a trophy to hang on the wall and admire. It's a weapon handed to you for battle. Get ready, because what we're about to discover will completely change your perspective on the next 90 days. God hasn't chosen you to be a spectator of his glory, but to be the channel through which his solutions flow. Sometimes the fear of failure is just the fear of shining in disguise. We feel more comfortable in the shadows because no one demands anything of us there, but you no longer belong in the shadows. It moves me to see how, despite your doubts about your own abilities, you continue to listen to this word. That tells me that your spirit is greater than your fears. You don't have to be perfect for what's coming. You just have to be available. God isn't looking for experts. He's looking for hearts willing to be guided. Brother, what I'm about to tell you is profound. The impression you made in heaven isn't the end of the road. It's the beginning of a completely new story. 3 days ago, a sacred silence fell over the heavenly courts. Your name, the one only God knows, was brought to the table. The question was clear. Is this son ready for what's to come? And the advocate, the one who saw you weep silently and yet still trust, answered for you. He stayed when no one was watching. He hesitated, but his feet never stopped walking toward you. He has passed the test of concealment. At that moment, a decree was issued. Send him. Authorize him. You must understand that this approval is not a badge of honor for your ego. It is an activation for your purpose. God has not chosen you merely to make you feel good, but to wield a level of authority you cannot yet imagine you possess. I'm pausing here briefly because, as you know, maintaining this connection requires a lot of energy and dedication. If you feel today's message is resonating with you and you like to honor the value you've received, you can buy me a symbolic coffee through my Ko-Fi. It's a beautiful way to balance giving and receiving voluntarily, and it allows me to continue sharing these messages with you freely. I've left a direct link in the first pinned comment, and also here below in the video description. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for your presence and support. Namaste. Comment, I accept my assignment, and activate your faith right now. Listen carefully. Chosen one. God's approval is not a trophy. It's a deployment order. When the Father is impressed with you, he ceases to be an observer of your life and becomes a general of your battle. He no longer merely acknowledges you. He now authorizes you. In Luke 12, verse 48, we are taught a powerful truth. To whom much is given, much will be required. In the original language, this requirement is a term of stewardship. It doesn't mean that God will place a heavy burden on you to crush you, but rather that he will call you to account for the spiritual resources he has entrusted to you. He will never ask you to do something for which he hasn't first equipped you. And you, brother, have already been equipped in the solitude of your cave. We are entering a phase where your faith will cease to be theory and become a visible victory. But I must be honest with you, as a brother who watches over your soul. The real battle begins now. Many believe that blessing is the finish line, but in the kingdom, blessing is the starting gun. You are about to operate in a different dimension, and this shift in frequency will bring clear evidence. Over the next 40 days, you will begin to notice specific signs that the heavens have sent your way. These are not random signs. They are confirmations that your deployment has begun. We will discuss 6 signs in total, but today we will delve into the first 5 that will manifest in your environment. It strikes me to think that while you felt forgotten, heaven was debating your ability to lead what's to come. Sometimes God is silent not because he's absent, but because he's waiting for the perfect moment to launch you with all his might. Don't be afraid of divine demand, because his demand is actually a compliment. It means he trusts you as much as you've learned to trust him. Chosen one, pay close attention. As I describe these first signs, observe what is happening within you. It is very likely that you have already begun to experience some of them, but you thought they were mere coincidences or a product of luck. They are not. They are the footprints of heaven on your daily path. The first mark you'll notice in these 40 days is a serenity that defies all logic. You'll find yourself in the middle of a situation that, in the past, would have caused you absolute panic. Unexpected news about your livelihood, tension in your relationships, or a health challenge. The threat will be real and legitimate. But here's the miracle. Your hands will be steady. While others around you are losing control and falling into anguish, you'll be making coffee or breathing normally. It's not indifference, nor is it denial of reality. It's that your spirit is anchored in something the world cannot see. Philippians 4 verse 7 calls this the peace that guards your heart. In the original, that guard is a military garrison stationed at the gate of your mind. God's peace isn't visiting your life. It has taken up a defensive position so that chaos cannot touch you. He states in the comments, God's peace is my shield, and feels that garrison now activated. The second sign is a favor that opens doors no one should be able to open. People who have no logical reason to help you will. You'll receive proposals or opportunities that seem to have bypassed the normal process. To an outside observer, it will look like good luck. But you and I know it's divine alignment. When God marks a child for deployment, he also charts a course for him. He gives you access to places and resources that were previously off limits. How do you handle this? Receive it without guilt. Don't try to minimize it by saying it was a coincidence. However, Remember that every open door is a responsibility. As you cross that threshold, don't just ask yourself what you're going to receive, but rather, Father, what have you sent me here to build? Favor is a tool for building, not just a benefit to enjoy. The third sign is a strategic shift. You will see confusion among those who have tried to stop you, without you having to lift a finger or utter a word in your defense. The obstacles the enemy placed in your path will begin to crumble due to their own mistakes. Heaven is taking care of distracting the opposition so that you can advance with clarity. Sometimes we try so hard to defend our peace that we end up losing it in the process. I'm glad that today you understand that you don't have to explain to anyone why you are calm in the midst of the storm. Your peace is a gift from the Father for your faithfulness in secret. Enjoy this favor, not because you are perfect, but because you have chosen to trust in the one who owns all doors. Brother, this mark is one of the most impactful. You will see how the plans devised against you crumble under their own weight. It's not that you're lucky, it's that you're under divine protection. When God marks you, confusion descends upon your opponents. They will try to plan, but their calculations will fail. They will try to attack, but they will strike at thin air. Their own strategies will become their downfall. How do you deal with this? Keep your heart pure. Don't gloat over their downfall or seek revenge. Simply observe in silence and thank the Father privately. Your only task is to remain focused on the mission you've been given, while God takes care of clearing the path of those who try to stop you. Write in the comments, God fights for me and rests in his justice. The fourth mark is acceleration. God is going to compress time in your life. Processes that normally take years will be resolved in months. What should take months will happen in weeks. Doors that require decades of solid relationships will open after a single unexpected conversation. You'll receive that message, that call, or that opportunity that seems too good to be true. It's not a coincidence. It's heaven delivering early because your assignment requires urgent resources. How should you manage it? Receive the blessing without guilt, but with purpose. The provision is not for your personal comfort. It is for your divine commission. Always ask yourself, Father, what spiritual or material building should I construct with this resource you have sent me? The fifth sign is an unprecedented spiritual acuity. You will begin to know things that no one has told you. You will have profound insights into situations and people before they manifest. Your dreams will be more vivid, and the voice of God will be clearer than the noise of the world. You're not becoming strange. You're becoming spiritually sensitive. When God deploys a chosen one, he gives them the radar necessary to navigate the mission. You can't fulfill your purpose if you don't hear his voice clearly. How to manage it? Test everything. Don't let yourself be carried away by any emotion, but don't dismiss what the Spirit whispers to you either. Write down what you receive. Seek confirmation in the Word. And when you are certain, obey immediately. Brother, these 5 marks are powerful, but they are only the prelude. There is a 6th sign, the definitive one, which I cannot yet tell you about, but it will change everything. However, to walk at this level of authority, you must be ready for the weight of glory. Remember, God's approval attracts heaven's attention, but also the enemy's reaction. However, there is no reason to fear, because the one who called you is faithful to sustain you. It amazes me to see how God is giving you back the time you thought was lost. Those cave nights you thought were wasted time, God is now multiplying to swift victories. Don't be overwhelmed by the speed of what's coming. If the Father is accelerating it, it's because he has already expanded your capacity to handle it. Enjoy this mental clarity and this provision, because they are the tools of your newfound freedom. Brother, the enemy is not blind. He has seen the mark heaven has placed upon you, and is already plotting his counterattack. I'm not telling you this to frighten you, but to arm you. In the next 40 days, you will face 5 specific strategies designed to derail you. If you ignore them, you may stumble, but if you recognize them, victory will always be yours. As you describe each one, let your spirit identify which one is already at work around you. It's not bad luck, it's spiritual warfare, and today you will learn how to overcome it. The first strategy is to make you feel alone, even when you're surrounded by people. You'll be at your workplace or at a family gathering, and suddenly someone will make a comment. You've changed so much, you're not the same person anymore. But they won't say it with joy, but rather with an accusatory tone that seeks to make you feel guilty for your growth. You'll feel that lump in your throat and the urge to defend yourself, to prove that you're still normal. Don't. The enemy wants you to shrink back into the mold of who you used to be. How to win, accept the separation. Your isolation is not a rejection of God. It is a sacred distinction. Don't apologize for growing. Say to yourself, my new assignment requires distance from my old self. The loneliness you feel is the space God uses to speak to you without interference. She says, I accept my process of change to break free from the pressure to fit in. This is one of the most dangerous. You will be presented with something that looks very similar to what you have been asking for in prayer. It will have the same benefits and the same timing, but it will be a counterfeit. It could be a job, a relationship, or a business that, in theory, meets all the requirements. Your logic will say, this is it. But deep in your spirit, you'll feel a hesitation, a doubt you can't put into words. Your prayers will begin to feel clouded when you think about it. That fog is the Holy Spirit warning you that it's 90% right and 10% poison. That small percentage is enough to lead you astray from God's perfect plan. How to recognize it. If it forces you to compromise your values, if it creates confusion instead of peace, or if you feel you have to force the door, it's a trap. How to overcome it. Don't rush in out of desperation. Wait for the opportunity that comes from the Father, the one that doesn't add sadness, but brings full and clear confirmation. Sometimes the greatest obstacle to God's best is what appears good in the eyes of the world. Don't feel bad about saying no to an opportunity that others would consider a success. I'm inspired by your spiritual maturity in choosing to wait in God's shadow rather than shine in a false light. You're showing that your ear is more attuned to his whisper than to the noise of earthly offers. Brother, this is one of the most silent battles. You've been faithful, you've done everything right, but suddenly nothing happens. The progress you expected seems to have stalled, and the silence grows heavy. This is where the enemy launches his most common barb. God forgot about you. You wasted your time. This is the proof of delayed gratification. Many give up just when they're 3 steps away from the goal. They despair in the waiting room of heaven. But you, chosen one, must know that delay is not denial, it is preparation. Don't measure God's faithfulness with your watch. He's never late. He's always on time. Keep walking. Even if you can't see the horizon, the promise still stands because the one who made is faithful. You'll notice something strange during these 40 days. People you love will start acting differently. Friends will drift away. Family members will criticize you, or a partner will question your spiritual choices. You'll ask yourself, what did I do wrong? The answer, brother in faith, is that you did nothing wrong. What's happening is that your growth exposes the stagnation of others. Your obedience reveals the compromises they've made. They aren't rejecting you. They're rejecting the light you now radiate. God is allowing a necessary pruning. Release them with love. Don't waste your energy trying to hold on to those God is taking away. If they're meant to be at your next level, they'll come back. If not, let them go. God is making room for the connections that will truly propel your destiny. Pay close attention, because this is the most subtle poison. When you start to see results, when favors flow and doors open, a thought will creep in, I did it. I'm special. This is by my own strength. The moment you believe you've generated approval, instead of understanding that you're merely managing it, you risk losing access to that source. Pride doesn't shout, it whispers. It disguises itself as confidence, but it's really just ego. Every morning, before you get up, surrender your authority to the Father. Say aloud, Lord, this is yours. Everything I have comes from you. I am merely the steward of your grace. Maintaining a grateful heart is the only antidote to pride. Ephesians 6 verse 12 reminds us that our true battle is not against flesh and blood people, but against spiritual forces that try to cloud our purpose. The original word for battle refers to hand-to-hand combat, where the enemy will try to use you to bring you down, but you already know the map of their tricks. Sometimes it hurts to lose friends or feel like time is slipping away, but I want to tell you that nothing is lost in God's hands. Everything is transformed. If the Father is cleansing your social circle or adjusting your schedule, It's because what's coming is so great that it requires you to be free of unnecessary burdens. It inspires me to see how you remain steadfast despite the friction. You're demonstrating that your approval comes from above and not from the applause of men. Brother, the word for fight in the original Greek is pale. It doesn't describe a distant war with arrows, but hand-to-hand combat where you feel your opponent's breath. It's an intimate, personal, and sometimes suffocating struggle. That's why spiritual attacks feel so invasive in your thoughts and emotions. They don't attack you from afar. They try to grab hold of you so you can't move forward. But the promise in James 4 verse 7 is your victory manual. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. It doesn't say the enemy will simply disappear. It says that when you stand your ground and deploy your weapons, the word, worship, and obedience, the enemy is legally obligated to retreat. It is a law of the kingdom. He states in the comments, I maintain my position in God, and feels the siege break. To help you understand that this isn't just theory, I want to tell you about someone who walked the same path as you. We'll call her Sarah. She was in her apartment one Tuesday at 11 o'clock at night, facing the most terrifying silence of her life. Weeks earlier, God had given her a clear instruction. Quit today. After 7 years of stability, she obeyed. 3 weeks later, sitting on her sofa with her bank statement on the screen, she only had enough left to last a few days. The rent was due soon, and panic began to scream at her. You heard wrong. You're going to be out on the street. Call your boss, apologize, and get your job back. Her hand trembled on the phone, but deep inside, she heard a heavenly whisper. I asked you to jump so you could see how I catch you. Sarah put down the phone and said aloud, Okay, Father, I'm yours. Do what you have to do. What happened next was a manifestation of the brands. Within 48 hours, a company she had never applied to called her. Within a week, he received an offer that doubled his previous income. But most importantly, during those 3 weeks of emptiness, she experienced supernatural peace, the first mark. She had to turn down a false opportunity from her former boss before receiving the real breakthrough. Brother, the details of your life will be different, but the pattern will be the same. Hebrews 12 verse 1 tells us that we are surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses. Sarah has just joined that cloud to tell you, it's worth staying. In a few months, your own story will be the evidence another brother needs to not give up. You are being shaped to be a living testimony that God does not abandon those who choose His will over their own safety. It moves me to think of the courage you've shown until now. I know that you, Sarah, have experienced that moment, staring at the screen with fear in your heart. Don't feel alone in this struggle. The Holy Spirit is holding your hands so you won't give in. Your progress won't come from your cunning, but from your ability to say, I am yours. It makes me happy to know that very soon you'll be celebrating your own victory. Brother, the cloud of witnesses continues to grow, and you are next on the list. But this level of favor is only maintained if you follow the protocol of the kingdom. Divine approval is not something you possess. It is something you carry. If you lose sight of the source, everything we have built could crumble. To help you stay aligned over the next 40 days, here are 3 daily practices that will strengthen your spirit. 1. In the morning, before you touch your phone, before your feet even touch the ground, say aloud, Lord, this is yours. Surrender your authority, your talent, and your results to the Father. Remember, you are not the owner. You are the steward. This silence is the whisper of the ego that will try to convince you that you achieved it entirely on your own. When opportunities arise and people start praising you, redirect the credit, not with feigned piety, but with genuine honesty. If they say, you're amazing, respond, God has been very good to me. If they admire your talent, say, I thank God for what is entrusted to me. You're not denying your effort. You're acknowledging the source that makes it possible. 3. Immediate obedience. Delayed obedience is, in essence, disobedience. If God tells you to move, move. If He says give, give. Don't seek 5 more confirmations if you've already heard His voice. Prompt obedience is the currency of the kingdom. It's how you demonstrate that you are a trustworthy steward for the next level. Write in the comments, I am a steward of His glory, and seal this commitment. 1 Corinthians 4 verse 7 asks us a question that should be our guiding principle. What you have that you did not receive, Your job is not to protect your reputation, but to protect His glory. Stewardship is the art of constantly remembering the source of everything that flows through you. If you manage to integrate these three practices, you will be ready for what most never achieve. I have saved the 6th mark for this moment because if I had told you at the beginning, your insecurity would have made you say, "I'm not qualified. Send someone else." But now, after understanding your cave, acknowledging your battles, and hearing Sarah's testimony, your spirit has the necessary maturity to receive it. The 6th mark is the ultimate turning point. It's what happens when you stop being blessed and become a blessing personified. The 6th sign is this: God will send you someone who will remind you of yourself a few months ago. It fills me with peace to see how you've moved from confusion to clarity during this time we've shared. These 3 daily practices aren't a burden. They are your freedom. They take the weight off your shoulders of having to maintain the blessing on your own and return it to the one who holds all power. I'm thrilled to know you're one step closer to discovering the final mark, the one that gives meaning to your entire process of isolation. Brother, the 6th mark is what separates followers from the leaders of the kingdom. God will send you someone who will remind you of your former self. Someone who carries the same pain, the same doubt, and the same questions you had in the cave. At that moment, you will hear His voice. Tell him what I told you. Pass it on. Your mind will say, "I'm not ready. I'm barely surviving." But God answers you. "I'm not asking you to teach what you've mastered. I'm asking you to share what you've learned." True maturity doesn't come when you feel perfect, but when you obey despite your insecurity. It's not about building a platform, but about a sacred transmission. You are not His Savior. You are His sign. Point to the Father and let go. Write in the comments, "Here I am. Send me," to activate your commission. The person who started seeing this message 40 minutes ago is no longer alive, and something was born. It no longer exists. Shame, the fear of being invisible, and the lie that you are not qualified. Born, the certainty that you are marked, the warrior mentality, and the ability to bear a greater weight of glory. Your hands are not the same. They have been commissioned. From today onward, everything you touch, everything you build, and everything you pray for will carry a different frequency. You have crossed the threshold. There is no going back, even if you wanted to. You have been seen, approved, and deployed. If you can, place your right hand over your heart. Let's seal this in the unseen realm. Father, in the name of Yeshua, I present myself before the courts of glory for every chosen one who hears this. I declare that the veil is thin and your presence is tangible right now. What was sown in secret is now activated in power. I seal His invisible acts, His sacrifice, His forgiveness, and His midnight worship. I seal the 5 marks: peace, favor, confusion of the enemy, accelerated provision, and prophetic clarity. I bind and cancel the spirit of uselessness, the fear of the future, and comparison. I decree that within the next 40 days you will see physical evidence that the owner of the keys has turned the lock in your favor. Asterisk. Your name is being spoken right now in rooms you haven't even entered yet, by people who will become your divine connections. You're not just going to survive. You're going to dominate this season with a fresh anointing. You are marked. You are seen. You are approved. You are deployed. Heaven has heard your yes. The angels have stood firm. You have signed a covenant of light. You are officially released from the season of being ignored and from the cave of preparation. You are freed into divine visibility as a bearer of God's approval. If this video has resonated with your soul or brought you clarity today, I invite you to close this circle of gratitude. I've left a link to my Ko-Fi in the description and pinned comment. If you feel moved to support my journey in the creation of this content, your seed of abundance is welcome and deeply appreciated. Thank you for helping me continue to expand this light. Go now. Walk differently. Speak differently. Because the God of the universe is impressed with you. We have reached the end of this journey, but it is only the first day of your new reality. I am honored to have walked with you through these words. Never forget that your worth is not defined by your bank account or the opinions of men, but by the gaze of the one who saw you in the darkness and chose to call you the chosen one. Go with confidence, for the path has already been cleared for you.